Alright, welcome to another weekly outlook video. Before I begin, I would like to apologize for the sound you may hear in the background. Just working on a few things there, but I hopefully will be audible enough for the entirety of this recording. So starting off with the economic calendar for the week ahead, we don't have too much to expect. Well, from what I see here, we don't have anything too out of place for next week, for this week that we're stepping into. Starting on Monday, well, on Sunday, for some reason we have the parliamentary elections, so that's something that might create some sort of gap when the markets open on Euro pairs. We also have German CPI all day on Monday, tomorrow. We have CAD holidays, but that's not much to worry about. We also have manufacturing PMI from the US dollar, and going into Tuesday we have more Euro news. So already Euro is a red flag here, Euro is a red flag here, and we have more Euro news here as well on Tuesday. So Euro is really a focus this week, or something that I will be paying attention to this week. And we have core CPI there as well. We have CPI flash estimates, so this will bring a degree of volatility on Tuesday, which I'm looking forward to. Then over here we have speech at 9:30 on Euro and US dollar, but that's on Tuesday. We also have some red folder at 10, which would make the silver bullet nice to trade on Tuesday, especially on NASDAQ. On Wednesday, we have unemployment change, non-farm employment change, not unemployment change, but yeah, we have unemployment claims, and then we have services PMI. Here we had manufacturing, here we have services. And then another thing that I will be paying attention to is right there, Swiss francs CPI. I'll be paying very close attention to Swiss franc CPI. So already so far, I've mentioned that I'm interested in Euro, I've mentioned that I'm interested in Swiss, and now I am interested in the dollar, of course, throughout the week, but mostly on Friday that I'll be paying personal attention to the dollar. At the beginning of the week, I might not pay too much attention to the USD or the CAD, but on Friday I will, because of non-farm employment change, and yeah, all these other red folders there at 8:30. So now let's move on to the chart, but keep this in mind, and I'll probably bring it up again at different points in the video. But I'll go through the list of pairs that I have on my trading view, and I'll try my best as quick as possible to go through all of them. And of course, while doing so, I'll be showing my top watch for the week and things like that. Of course, if you don't know already, I have timestamps below this video. You can either check it out in the description or on the video itself for those that are looking for very specific pairs that they want to focus on. So if you're interested in that, just go use the timestamps. You don't have to stay through every single pair that I go through, so yeah, that's going to just be misery. And yeah, let's begin. I will be starting off with the dollar index and will be as brief as possible, as quick as possible. Let's delete these. On the monthly time frame, because a new month has ended, I will be starting here. We can see that we swept the previous month low over there, and right now, with how bullish we've closed in the last month, the previous month's high looks to be suspect. So that high looks to be the very next draw on liquidity. We've also closed out for the quarter, so when we zoom out to the quarterly time frame, we can see sort of the same thing. We've swept the previous quarter's low over there. We failed to sweep here. We've made a new high, and we've confirmed the new swing high here. So we would expect what's next, the previous swing high to be next, and that's over there. So when you go on a lower time frame to view this previous swing high on a quarterly chart, say a weekly chart, you would notice that it's these relative equal highs up there. So my eyes are still drawn to those highs long term, especially throughout this month. So I'm paying attention to those highs personally. I don't know where you guys might be focusing on, but that's where I am. On the weekly time frame, we had a somewhat of an indecisive chart. Let's delete these, I don't think they're important. Somewhat of an indecisive chart on the previous week, and we also have a weekly fair value gap. So I know that for different reasons, many people out there might be expecting an expansion from here, and I will cover those reasons going down on a lower time frame. But I believe, and I would like to see price come down to this weekly time frame and completely fill up this weekly bullish fair value gap before continuing higher. I'll give my reasons on the daily. On the daily, we have this inverted fair value gap down there that I've been monitoring for some time. The reason I wanted the weekly charts fair value gap to be filled up is because of this inversion. I would like to see price come to take out this smooth candle low, because I don't like when price turns around like this, right? So I'd like to see price take it out and come down to this area. If you've been watching my last 3 weekly outlook videos, you would know that in this area we have that hourly order block that I've been eyeing for so long now, this hourly bullish order block. And you can see how this hourly order block is within the inversion and 100% fill of the weekly gap. This is the weekly gap, these 2 blue lines, 100% fill will be there. It's where the order block is, and also the daily inversion is where the order block is. So I'm really paying attention to this 1 hour fair value gap with an order block. That's my focus area for this week. So I'm expecting, or I would like to see the dollar index tag these levels for the low of the month before continuing higher. When we go back out to the daily time frame, you'd notice that price in the previous week used this bullish order block right there. We first came off of this fair value gap. We moved from internal to external range liquidity, taking that swing high and closing above this down close candle, making it a bullish order block. Now price came, tapped on that bullish order block right there on Thursday, and on Friday opened up and continued higher, but did not clear the buy side liquidity. And the failure to do so with this body closure being so low, it makes me think this daily order block might not be respected. We might actually push down to this volume imbalance before we push up to clear that buy side, and then ultimately that buy side. But of course, I'm not favoring anything from this area. I'm not favoring anything from this area either. And I already mentioned where I'm looking for. I'm looking for the weekly gap to be tagged, specifically 100% fill of it. But I would like it to be tagged. Anywhere from it being tagged here, I'll be interested in buying the dollar. Now, that being said, I don't have to go through Euro dollar, GBP dollar, Euro Swiss, EURJPY, or any other pair with the dollar, because my conditions remain the same. I would like to see the dollar tag these levels before looking for buys on USD or sells on NZDUSD or GBPUSD or anything like that, right? So yeah, I'm not going to go through all the dollar pairs because of exactly that. That's my condition for the dollar before moving forward. But I will be covering NZDUSD specifically in this video because I found it interesting. Let's start with AUDUSD, then I'll roll to AUDUSD, then I'll roll to the SMT pair, which is NZDUSD. On NZD, looking at this on a weekly chart, we literally did nothing last month. We just consolidated. We didn't really go anywhere last month. But one area that I was interested in was this weekly gap with a BPR basically right there. That's a balanced price range. So I was looking to see if price could turtle swoop there into that gap before continuing lower, especially considering how AUD has been extremely bullish for so long. But I believe and I know that the reason AUDUSD has been failing to sweep these highs is because, yes, the Australian dollar has been strong, but so has the US dollar, right? So two strong pairs would just cause a consolidation, or two weak pairs would just cause a consolidation. For us to get a high probability setup, you would need one that's weak and one that's strong. So in this case, they're both strong. That's why we got this chop. But I'm expecting price to trade higher into that gap before looking for a structure shift on a lower time frame with an SMT for me to take it down to the sell side liquidity levels that we generated. So yeah, that's my outlook on AUDUSD. Why I say that I'm interested in NZDUSD is because, let's go to the NZDUSD chart on a weekly time frame. Okay, there's so much happening here. Let's find a cleaner chart. On NZDUSD, we got a swing high here on the 29th of April. Let's remove our drawings. A swing high here on the 29th of April that was broken by a fair value gap from a weekly perspective. This swing high and this fair value gap, keep in mind that the fair value gap was created, if you look down there, you can see this, the fair value gap was created on the 13th of May 2024. Let's go to AUDUSD and find that candle. That's the 13th of May 2024. Clearly we didn't get any gap created here, right? So and definitely, from, if you ask me, we got an SMT inside of this fair value gap, which is what I need to take a trade. What I mean by an SMT is that, look at this low on the 20th of May and the low created last week. That's an SMT divergence between this NZDUSD and the correlated pair, which is, let's go back again. I'm showing this one by one because people seem to get confused. We got that basically. That's the 20th of May 2024. Notice how we failed to take a new low. We failed to sweep that low. If you're not convinced even more, then focus on the previous week only. The previous week, right, we failed to take this week's low, the 17th of June, while on NZDUSD we successfully took the previous week low. So we clearly got an SMT inside of a high time frame PDRA. That's where I was trying to get to, that we have an SMT inside of a high time frame PDRA. I don't care how you draw your SMT out, but we do have one. If this is a weekly PDRA, the next thing I like to look for in my personal model that I trade, not the one that I share, not the outlooks that I give everyone, is I would go down from the weekly time frame to the 4-hour time frame to look for a structure shift. On the 4-hour chart, we don't have a market structure shift yet. Firstly, these relative equal highs have my attention right there. Secondly, I am paying very careful attention to this future breaker. I believe price is going to push higher and close above this up close candle to make it a breaker, and then continue higher from there. So we might get something like this. A close above it first is mandatory. Close above that swing high, or close above this breaker block, a retest of it, then a continuation higher. This is my nearest drawn liquidity. But of course, as we saw from a weekly time frame, this could end up being an internal to external range liquidity move from this fair value gap all the way to that swing high right there. This is a very high possibility because, remember, on the dollar, I'm expecting us to push lower first before continuing high. So which means on NZDUSD, I'm expecting us to push higher first before continuing lower. So this is a watch for me going into next week. I'm watching for this to become a breaker, then continue higher. If it doesn't become a breaker, then I'm not going to be interested in it. If it disrespects this fair value gap, then I'm no longer interested. So I would like to see a first fair value gap created here, the second one created above or within this breaker block, and then that's going to make a high probability fair value gap with a breaker block for me to continue taking price high to those relative equal highs. Another thing interesting about those relative equal highs is because on the daily time frame, we would notice that it's a previous fair value gap as well. Yes, I know that it's already been tested twice, but we can narrow it down to this portion of it that has not been tested at all. So yeah, I'm paying careful attention to that. Another thing to notice is that if we do get this set up to take price higher, there is no resistance on its way. There's no fair value gap that's going to act as a stumbling block to hold price lower. So I am very interested to see how this plays out in the week, earlier on in the week at least. So that's my view on NZDUSD. Let's move on to the next one, which would be USD Swiss. These are the only $2 pairs that I'm going to manually show what I'm expecting, even though my expectations from the previous video has not really changed much. So on the monthly time frame, we got a liquidity sweep, we got a test of this fair value gap, and I was saying that I'm looking for a possible internal to external range move. We are dealing with a monthly time frame here, so I'll need a confirmation on the daily. On the daily last week, we actually got the confirmation, I think. Well, we didn't get the sweep of the high, but last week I was looking to see if the high impact news events could take us into this gap. None of them did. None of them took us even to the other block that we created there, the last down close candle. We didn't get that either. You might get that during NFP this week. This coming week, we might get price trade down into this. But then again, we have CPI from the Swiss pair on Thursday. So I'm not too sure how this is going to play out. Another thing to notice on the daily time frame is that now we've created a swing high right there. And this swing high was followed up by a fair value gap up there. So this might be where the low of the week is formed on USD Swiss. We might tap this fair value gap and order block before continuing higher. Yes, again, as I have mentioned, we haven't gotten a structure shift. A structure shift would be a closure above a swing high. So far, the only swing high that I see here that we've traded above is this swing high right there, but we have not closed above it yet. So if price comes down during NFP and during Swiss CPI and finally trades higher, closing above this newly formed possible swing high, I don't know if it's going to be a swing high until Monday closes. So let's say this is a swing high and now we finally have a fair value gap somewhere here. I can look for the following week to start buying USD Swiss to take this from internal on a high time frame to external on a high time frame. Keep in mind that this is a daily time frame, so this might take some time to form. But that's what I'm looking for on USD Swiss. I'm not going to actively trade it, but it's a possibility to watch out for. Let's move on now to the yen pairs. Starting with the yen basket, which again is just a combination of every yen, well, not every major yen pair that I have, just multiply with each other right there. I don't use the Japanese index because this basically feels like USDJPY, but the index form of it. So I don't really use this. I use this one because it's a little more accurate for me. We can see we are clearly bearish. We're at the all-time lows right now, and yeah, price has not been stopping for anybody. We've now created a weekly fair value gap again, just like we did here. The difference is that now we don't have a swing low to reference from the left side of the chart. We do have a possible new swing low that could form here. I'm trying to say that we could create another fair value gap there. The exact same thing that happened here. For as long as we're still bearish on this chart, we could get something like this now. A new internal to external range move. So price could trade up into this fair value gap for the week and the month, and then trade out of it. Another area to keep in mind is this possible weekly order block. Price could trade into the order block instead of the fair value gap, could trade through the fair value gap, tap the order block, and then immediately reject away to make a new all-time low. So I'm still very bearish on the yen crosses. Now I'm going to the first one that I have here being AUDJPY. We look at the quarterly time frame. The reason I'm looking at that is because I want to see the all-time high, and that's the all-time high right there. I've labeled it as ATH, that's all-time high. Going down to the monthly chart, we don't have a fair value gap yet because I was looking to see if we have a fair value gap around here. We don't even have one lower, we just have an immediate rebalance right there. So we don't have a fair value gap created in this leg of price action. But when we go down to the weekly time frame, I think we do have one, and we do. We've stepped that high now. We could see price have the same move from internal range liquidity out to external range liquidity, from there to there, to the all-time high. So this is my view on AJ going into next week. On AJ, considering how strong AUD is, I don't even expect us to fill up this gap. I don't even expect us to trade to the other block there that we just created, coming from another fair value gap, which makes this a proportion block actually, because we have an order block there respected within a fair value gap, and now we've created a new order block coming off of another older one. This makes this a proportion block. So if price does tap this, it should run quickly away from it, but I don't even expect that to be tagged. I expect this fair value gap to hold from internal to external if price gives it to us. If price reaches the all-time high, then I'm no longer interested in this. I'm not even going to bother myself with it. The reason I say this is because we closed above the previous weekly high. Very solid closure above the previous weekly high. On the 4-hour time frame, we had a nice internal to external range move within this gap here. We traded lower, we got an SMT, and we traded higher to the highs up there. So yeah, I'm not even going to be too surprised if we don't trade lower. I mean, look at this. What I'm trying to say is that the distance between here and the all-time high is so much closer than the distance between there to test the gap, then push up from the gap to the all-time high. So yeah, reaching up there is easier than coming down to push up again. So I don't know how much retracement would need to come down to this weekly gap, considering that we're already respecting the 4-hour and the daily with an SMT actually on NJ. So speaking of NJ, go to NJ daily chart and we can see the SMT. It wasn't the clearest one. Well, we tapped into it here, but it wasn't the clearest one on the 4-hour, but we did get an SMT on a lower time frame. And on NJ, zooming out, we can see the all-time high has been long reached. So yeah, we're literally in no man's land right here. That's why I'm no longer too interested on the JPY pairs. Not that it's hard to trade, but just because I don't know what I'm trading it to. You know, I don't know what I'm trading it to, so I can only look for continuation higher. I can only look for weekly retests of the gaps before pushing up. I'm not looking for daily internal to external anymore, even though they're there, but I have not much confidence in them compared to the weekly. So yeah, I'm expecting a very sharp move to the opposite direction, something as sharp as this, sharp and violent as this, sharp and violent as this, sharp and violent as this, or this, or any of these massive moves to the downside before considering buys on any yen pair right now. But that's, yeah, this is my view on, I just realized I was on UJ the whole time, not NJ. That is crazy. Yeah, this was the SMT I was talking about. We failed to take the previous daily low. But yeah, basically the same thing. Nothing no difference. Let's move out to the quarterly again to make sure that we have taken the all-time high. There's really nothing here for me on NJ, just because we've reached targets. They're all going to have similar structure, but NJ has been sluggish lately. We're taking a new high, I think, because of the weakness that we have currently on NJ. NZD as a currency has been struggling to push up in strength. When you look at AUD NZD, this massive bull run, the strength is on AUD's side and the weakness is on NZD's side. So yeah, that's AJ covered. Skimming through other yen pairs quickly, you see the same thing. Order block, fair value gap on a weekly time frame, possible internal to external, and let's put alerts here just in case. And when you zoom out on a quarterly time frame, we've either tagged the all-time high or close to tagging the all-time high. In this case, we haven't tagged it yet, so let's label that and set our alerts on it. But yeah, that's our quarterly chart on CJ. On EJ, quarterly chart, we've tagged the all-time high. We're in no man's land right now, massively bullish. Weekly time frame, yeah, we've already done the internal to external that I was looking for. I actually capitalized on this move from the weekly fair value gap to the external range liquidity. So moving forward, we might maybe watch this gap right there. They all have the same sort of weekly gap situation going on there. GJ, we don't have a weekly gap, a new one here, but we are still a bit of a distance to taking out the all-time high. In this case, I labeled a few important highs on the quarterly chart. We have the swing high there. We have a another high there, a previous monthly quarterly high there. We have a rejection block there, another rejection block, then the final all-time high up there, just to have targets on lower time frames. When I go down to the weekly chart, I don't see the same gap here as well, so this could be an indication that we could push lower first before continuing higher soon. But even when we do push lower, I don't have a level that I could call some sort of inefficiency that I could trade from, unless we have a dramatic push down, say to some gap like that. You know, if we get that quick spike down, that market manipulation, then I could look for buys from this area, taking it again to the all-time high. Yeah, I'm not really bearish on any yen crosses. I'm not even going to try and be the one to try and stop the train. So I'll be paying attention to these areas. Any inefficiency made on a high time frame, I'll be looking for buys. Right now on the yen crosses, I've already said I don't really have a currency as a top watch, but CJ does look interesting because we do have CAD news throughout the week, so we might trade down into this fair value gap with an order block set up here, and we could have an SMT with UJ, which is the correlated pair, and then we could get an expansion to the upside, the new high that would be made here. So that's all I see, something like that, internal to external. But that's all I have on the yen pairs. Now moving on, since we just covered the CAD, and considering the fact that we have CAD news, let's go through the CAD crosses and my expectations on them. On the quarterly time frame, doesn't look the most pleasant right now, still too choppy to say anything. On the monthly time frame, same situation. Yes, we've swept the previous monthly high over there, but we've also swept the previous monthly low already. So we could possibly, if we are going to be bearish on this market, then we could possibly aim for the previous swing low on the monthly time frame. So that's what I see so far. We could see some sort of bearishness coming into this. On the weekly chart, we still have the same situation here. We set a previous high, we displaced lower, we've created a fair value gap here on the weekly time frame, but I don't want to see us trade to this weekly gap because of this rejection block. We have a rejection block here, which we know on a lower time frame could be a breaker or a mitigation block or even just an order block. So when we go down on a daily, it looks like it's just an order block. So I would be interested in taking this setup, especially considering the euro news that we have throughout the week. We might get a push up into this. Let's make this a little better. Yeah, we might get a push up into this area, this block, the order block, and I would only consider taking this if we have an SMT with GBPCAD. GBPCAD structure, we are extremely bearish here. Well, we're completely weak here. But if price can somehow give us some sort of SMT on this daily time frame, I would consider taking it, just because we have, at that point, we would have swept the previous weekly high, which is right there, and also would have traded into a high time frame PDRA, which is right there. Then we could consider a possible internal to external range move, like so, and that fits exactly my model if we have an SMT and a lower time frame entry. So that's what I'm expecting going into next week on EURCAD. Since we've already covered EURCAD and GBPCAD in the process because of SMT, let's move on to AUDCAD and NZDCAD. AUDCAD, we already know that AUD is stronger than NZD from what we covered just now on AUD NZD. On the daily time frame, a complete chop, because the CAD is almost the same in strength with the dollar. So we expect to see the same sort of consolidation happening on AUDCAD as well. That's why we saw on the weekly and daily time frame, it's a complete chop right now. But we do have a fair value gap here created on the monthly. So if somehow, even though the Australian dollar has been incredibly bullish, even though we've been like very strong on AUD, if somehow we trade down into this area where we have this fair value gap and weekly, well, monthly order block, let's set the alerts actually, so I could possibly watch it from the following week if we get a setup by then. So yeah, if somehow we can trade into this, taking the previous monthly low, then I could look for an internal to external range move on AUDCAD. Going down to the weekly time frame, as I said, it's a complete chop, it's a complete mess, and it doesn't really give me anything solid to work with. But we could find some sort of SMT to take it higher from this internal to external. Internal isn't from the monthly time frame to take it up again to this external. And this actually brings me to NZDCAD. Since we don't see much here on a lower time frame, this is all we really see on a monthly. On a lower time frame beyond this, we don't really see much. I went to NZDCAD to look to see if I would see the same thing, and I do actually. Let's delete that. We do have a gap, with the difference being that the monthly candle here is extremely bearish and we actually swept the highs. So getting into this gap is high probability in my books, at least. It looks like we're going to really get into this gap because of the weakness on NZD. I know it doesn't look like it with these two blue lines, but that's because on a weekly time frame, it's also a gap, a bullish gap. So I expect to see some sort of SMT inside of this gap. if NZDCAD can tap into this while AUDCAD doesn't tap into its own high time frame gap, which is I think this one. Wait, actually let's make sure. This bullish gap was created on the 13th, so the low of the 20th would have to be swept. When you go to AUDCAD, that's the 13th, the low of this would have to be swept. So yeah, the same area. If this low is swept, this low, then this low getting swept is basically the monthly gap also getting tapped into. So we will get a tap into the gap, but I don't know if we'll call it an SMT or not at that point. But yeah, because we'll be tapping into the same gap, we would have to look for lower time frames SMT if we're looking to buy it, because NZDCAD looks like a very nice internal to external range move from this gap to that buy side liquidity. Yeah, this looks like a very nice setup, especially considering this flat body high right there. So that's going to be my first drawn liquidity, then this one, which is basically a rejection block, then finally the buy side liquidity. So very nice buy side targets if the power can switch from AUD being strong to NZD being strong, at least as a pullback of some sort. So I'm looking for us to tap into this and push up. If you're wondering what these alerts are or these lines are, it's from a lower time frame. When you go down to the hourly time frame, I'm going to let you investigate on this, but on the lower time frame, like the hourly, we have an SMT at the highs. Actually, let's go down to the 30 minutes. We have an SMT at the highs right there. We have buy side liquidity there, and then we have an order block right there on the 30 minutes. This is me saying that we could possibly get some early in the week sells into that weekly gap. We could get a setup that looks something like this. If liquidity can sweep the highs, if we can sweep those highs, tapping into that other block, then we could look for a continuation lower. But again, nothing has to take price there. We could just reject literally from here and continue pushing lower. So yeah, I'm not really too interested in selling this, but I'm interested to seeing what price does inside of this high time frame PDRA. Very interested, especially now that we're slowing down. I think the power is about to tip from AUD's strength to NZD's strength soon. Anyway, now that we've covered NZDCAD, I'm not going to cover USDCAD because it's just a choppy mess. This is not what I like to trade, and also it has to do with the dollar. I've already given my conditions for the dollar in order to trade anything to do with the dollar. I've already covered EURCAD as a top watch. I'm looking for this possible setup. I've already covered GBPCAD because of EURCAD. So now that we've covered all the CAD pairs, let's move on to the next one, which I think is the Swiss. I don't think there's anything else. I think it's just the Swiss. Then we go to the indices. Starting off with the Swiss basket, which is where I begin to gauge whether or not to be buying Swiss pairs or selling. I look at the Swiss basket. Let's go to the monthly time frame. We can see that right now we are rejecting from that high time frame monthly gap. So my bias from last week's weekly outlook video hasn't really changed. I'm looking for an internal to external range move from that gap to here. Because we're dealing with a monthly gap, I need a daily confirmation. On the daily, we have so far pushed lower away from this. So far, this is beginning to feel like a breakaway gap. I don't believe price will tag that. I wouldn't actually like to see price tag there anymore, and I would like to see a continuation lower. We've also now disrespected this bullish fair value gap, right, by closing below it. So this is giving me indications that we might just reject lower from here, especially considering that we have CPI coming up on Thursday. but the rest of it's good that it's happening on Thursday, because we'll get to see the price action on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday before seeing and engaging what we are looking for. But so far I'm looking for lower prices on Swiss pairs. Of course, we have lower hanging fruits to target, like that, and yeah, that's also within a gap there. So we have lower hanging fruits like that gap to target. Starting with AUD Swiss, which is actually a top watch. Oh, by the way, anytime you find a color, a flag by my pairs like those, and those, just know that's my top watch for the week, or something that I'm paying very close attention to for the week. Starting with the monthly time frame, we got the SMT divergence inside of a monthly PDRA. Now that the monthly candle has finally closed, with this huge rejection away from the gap, I think we can all agree, or we can at least expect to see that swing high being tagged next. That's my expectations, at least from this weekly internal range liquidity, which is a gap, to that external range liquidity. The reason I'm picking AUD obviously is because of the AUD's strength, but we of course have NZD now that, as I said, might be tipping over, and we might get the strength also on NZD. But let's go down to lower time frames. On a weekly, it's just another block that we're rejecting away from. On a daily, we actually got our structure shift. The daily is actually very interesting now. Let's study this chart. So we got the SMT there with NZD Swiss. I'm not going to show you on this because this video is already too long. We also got a confirmation on this candle right here. If you paid attention to my previous weekly outlook video, I said that I want to see a closure above the bodies of these two candles for me to consider this area to be a breaker. So let's delete this now. This is the breaker that I'm paying attention to. Right, it's a very high probability breaker to me because it's swept liquidity. So I wanted to see a closure. Yes, we took the swing high there, but we still closed above the bodies right there. When price came back here, opened up and tapped it, even when we tapped it here, I was paying very close attention to it. And we actually got an SMT again inside of this breaker right there. See how we took the previous daily low on NZD Swiss? We didn't take the previous daily low, and also inside of a high time frame PDRA. So this was a very nice trade idea that I took here, but I wasn't the one that highlighted it. It was SM, this member of the group. If you don't know the group, just check out the Making Ends Meet series. You would find the group's link there. Anyway, going to AUD Swiss. So we got an SMT here. This was a very nice trade idea. Obviously, you go on a lower time frame. In this case, would be 1 hour, and then look for buys to take it up. But what's more important in this weekly outlook video is that even if you were doubtful of whether or not this was a good place to be looking for buys, like, okay, I don't trust that we swept the highs, but we didn't really close above the highs and stuff like that. Now we've actually closed above a previous swing high. So in other words, this has now become our market structure shift. There, our market structure shift has been confirmed. We now have a breaker there, and if you don't trade breakers, what's next? You'll be looking for a fair value gap. So I personally would like to see some sort of consolidation here on Monday. The reason being that I would like to now see a gap form that looks something like that. If we can find a fair value gap form inside on next week, then we could look for buys from here, from that gap. So yeah, for those that don't really want to deal with mitigation blocks, order blocks, all these other funny PDRAs, they just want to use internal to external, in this coming week you could look for a daily gap, and anywhere, because now that we've gotten our confirmation, remember we're still dealing with the monthly fair value gap here, and we need a daily confirmation. Now that we've gotten the daily confirmation, we just need an entry. The entry that we're looking for in this case is a daily fair value gap. So if somehow on between Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday we get a daily fair value gap, I'll definitely be looking for it because of Thursday's CPI and price possibly rejecting from that area, from that fair value gap on Thursday. So that's something to pay close attention to going to next week. So this is one of my top watch for the week ahead. That's why it's flagged there. Because I've already covered AUD Swiss, I have done the same on NZD Swiss. I am not the biggest fan of this just because it's weaker than the other one, but the same idea, the exact same idea. We've got SMT and all that jazz. If you're looking to trade NZD instead, of course we got the same situation. We got a fair value gap already. Yes, we've taken out the external range liquidity, which was that swing high there, but you could look for a future gap to be created, some sort of continuation here, a future gap disrespecting this CB as well. Then you could look for a continuation higher. So yeah, but this goes from next week, from this week to next week. So still so much opportunities, no need to rush, no need to hurry, no need to panic. We can just watch and see how price plays out. And that's two Swiss pairs already cut down. CAD Swiss, not too interested in this just because I don't have a PDA rate to work with, but we got our market structure shift already. We closed above a high. We don't have a very nice gap to play with here. If for some reason price pushes lower during CAD news into these discounted areas like the order block or this fair value gap, then I may be interested again on CAD Swiss. But besides that, I'm bullish, yes, because I'm bearish on Swiss pairs. I am bullish because of that, but I don't have a PDA rate to work with here. The same goes for the weekly. Yes, you could call this an order block, but it also looks like it's already been tested. So I don't know what to do with this right now. Yeah, I would say just watch and observe on a lower time frame. If you do get an entry, you could take it. Yeah, if you get an entry on a daily, you could take it. For me, I don't see anything yet to play with. Let's move on to Euro Swiss and GBP Swiss. All right. Start with the monthly. On the monthly, we are rejecting away from a discounted fair value gap, which is cool. So we could see an internal to external range move. And let's see GBP Swiss. We failed to tap into that. Yeah, this was an interesting one actually. That's why I flagged it there. It's an interesting one because here we haven't tapped into that same gap, that same discounted gap. Pay attention to the date here. This was created on the 1st of Feb that we created this gap. I saw online that some people are looking for a market maker sell model into that gap, right? They're looking for the sell model to be completed into that gap because we have a CB right there and we can expect a continuation to sweep that low. But the thing is, if we do get that, if we get a displacement from here to sweep the low, tapping into that gap, which is cool, I'm not going to doubt, I'm not going to deny that, but it breaks the SMT divergence that we currently have on the two pairs, because right now this one has already tapped into the gap. We've already gotten a market structure shift. Well, at least we got a change in the state of delivery, not a market structure shift. Let me draw the SMT. So we got our SMT there inside of a high time frame PDA array. We got our CSD change in the state of delivery right there. Price came and retested it, and now we're pushing away already. We have now also violated that same CB that we are worried about on GBP Swiss. Well, it's not the same one. Yeah, it's not the same one. It's on Friday 14th. Friday 14th. Oh, it's the same one. Yeah, it's the same one. We violated the same CB that we are worried about on GBP Swiss. So this makes me think and believe that we're just gonna remain bullish from here. I don't want to see this respected. But would I blindly buy this from where it is right now? Probably not. I would either wait for a possible retest of this bullish order block for me to take it higher, right? If I'm not too comfortable with that idea, Then I'm going to wait to see if we can invalidate this CB. I want to see if we can close above it. If we do close above it, then I'll look for entries to continue taking it higher, which follows my okay, I don't know what I'm doing now, which follows my bias of being bullish on Swiss pairs. So yeah, I'm bullish on this. I'm not really bearish, but I'm not too comfortable to blindly buy this or blindly sell this. And the area to watch for is that gap on the weekly. It's a very tiny one, but it's there. Yeah, it's minuscule. Probably just gonna remove that line. But yeah, I'm paying attention to these areas to possibly buy this up. And I think that's it. I think that's my top watch for the currency pairs. Other ones you've seen already. USD Swiss, I've already mentioned what I'm looking for. NZDUSD, I've mentioned what I'm looking for. I'm bullish on this. And yeah, I've already broken it down here. GBP Swiss, I have mentioned what I'm looking for as well. I'd like to either see this order block respected and push up, or disrespect the CB then continue higher. EURCAD, I've covered what I'm looking for. SMT at that order block there. If we can get it, I'll take it. If we don't, I'm not gonna bother myself with it. CADJPY, this is based on the weekly time frame. If we get some sort of a rejection lower into this order block with a fair value gap, this would be a high probability order block for me to possibly take from internal to external. I'm not gonna ride it to the all-time high. I'm just going to take it from here out back to the new external made. And then finally AUD Swiss, looking for bullish price action. We've already gotten a lower time frame confirmation based on that monthly PDRA. We've now gotten a nice structure on the daily, so I'm looking for a continuation higher from here. This is actually very clean if we can just wait patiently for the gap to be created. Now moving on to the indices. On NASDAQ, I am looking for higher prices. We came off rejecting. Okay, let's just delete these. On the daily time frame, there's no need to go for higher time frames right now, just because there's not much else to look for, because we're at the all-time high. Yeah, there's not much to look for. On the monthly, we don't have a monthly gap. Of course, we just came off of one. On the weekly, we already tapped into one last week, so I'm still looking for higher prices. On the daily time frame, which is where I was right now, we could see a sweep of the previous weekly low. We could see this low here getting ran, then we continue higher. But I'm looking for this all-time high as the target on NASDAQ. On NASDAQ, I don't really look for longer term views anymore. I'm no longer paying attention to that. If you're wondering, by the way, this is a very side note, and I know this video is already too long, but I'm going to end it at 1 hour. So if you're wondering, the channel started as JDES. The reason I chose ES was because I was day trading E-mini S&P 500, and that's actually where I made my first proper profit. And that's when I decided to start the channel to show what I was trading. So yeah, we could see the reason I'm no longer showing higher time frame views is because right now we're just making new all-time highs, so there's no real structure for me to work with. But every day during the New York session, I do watch the charts and I do trade the New York session on NASDAQ and ES. If you're wondering, I will probably start live streaming that soon, but right now I don't have the time for the energy for the live streaming, because it needs my full 100% attention to take a silver bullet entry from 10 to 11 a.m. New York time. So anyway, on NASDAQ, we could see a possible sweep in the previous weekly low before continuing higher. But of course, we do have this internal liquidity here to not forget. So price could come down to it, take that liquidity, look for lower time frame SMT and structure shift before pushing higher. But I don't like this one. I'm not going to aim for that, because I'd rather pay attention to these relative equal lows. Yes, we total swooped it there, but they're relatively equal to me. We could even come down to this area before pushing higher. We may make the low here and push higher. unless price is willing to, now where we are, reject and just continue pushing higher from here, from this rejection block. Price can decide that no, it's not really interested in lower prices. We could open up with a gap up and then continue trading higher, take out the all-time high. Then maybe NFP might be the one to drive us lower. Maybe, who knows? NFP might be the one to bring us down to these relative equal lows. But either way, either direction we take, I am ready for this intraday. And yeah, I'll see when I'll start live streaming my New York session trades. But I'm looking for the same idea on ES. On the daily time frame, we also have the same gap, but it's not the cleanest reversal that we got. We got a very massive chop before pushing up and then immediately rejecting lower. But I'm still looking for a continuation higher from here. We might just take the previous weekly low, or we might hold and continue making new highs to take this high. Yeah, either way, I'm paying attention to this during the silver bullet hours, which is 10 to 11 a.m. every day. Every single day, unless of course we have a US bank holiday, then I don't bother with the indices. So that's my view there. On gold, for those that trade gold, I'm only going to show you this from a 4-hour chart because the high time frame is still choppy. On a 4-hour chart, I'm looking for an expansion lower. We are rejecting from this breaker, well, order block, actually not a breaker, I can't call it a breaker, and I'm expecting price to just continue driving lower. I don't even want to see a retracement. The reason I'm looking for lower prices is because on a high time frame, let's go to the futures chart. On a weekly chart, a weekly time frame, even a monthly time frame, we can see that we have a bullish fair value gap here. Well, here it looks like we've tagged into it, but on the other normal currency charts or CFD charts, we have not tagged into this fair value gap. So for me, this is my low hanging fruit. We have now created a swing high on the monthly time frame, so I'm expecting this gap to be next. That's why I'm saying on a 4-hour chart, I'm looking for lower prices, because those lower prices is just it tapping into the weekly or monthly gap down there. But then it being gold, we don't know what could happen. We could take a new high first before pushing lower. Anything can happen. So yeah, with gold, I try to day stream it, to stream every day during London session, covering what I'm looking for on that day on gold. But the New York session, I trade the indices only. And then of course throughout the week, I have my actual weekly outlooks, the ones that I'm paying the most attention to, which I told you was the flagged ones. And yeah, I think I've covered everything. If I haven't covered anything in this video, please do let me know in the comment section. I will definitely make a separate video just for it. If you have something that you're interested in and something you'd like me to cover, I'll go through them. And yeah, for now, stay safe, take care of yourself, good luck and good trading.